So here, if I don't have a closed interval, or my domain like keeps going forever and ever and ever, then I'm not going to be able to check endpoints. Okay, I'm going to have to also think about this. So I may not always be able to get an absolute extrema. I may only be able to find relative extrema. And I'm going to be showing you how to do that. Okay? So let's look at this example. So tell me where all the critical numbers would be first. Go ahead. Critical numbers are going to be x values, if you want to make a little note of that in your notes. So it looks like all my critical numbers are going to be, let's see, at 1, at 3, and at 5. So that's going to be where f prime of x equals 0. Is there anywhere where I could think where f prime of x does not exist, or any endpoints here? So is there any place where this is not differentiable? So I can't see any place where this is not differentiable, and I do not have endpoints. So my only critical numbers are at 1, 3, and 5. So now I want to determine if those are relative, absolute, okay, or neither going on here. So let's see. At 1, I am at 2. At 3, I am at 1. And at 5, I am at 4. So at 1, 2, is that a relative or an absolute max? Right, it's a relative max. Because over here at 5, 4 is where I'm going to get my absolute max. And 3, 1 is a relative min, because I do go lower, but I never actually hit the 0. It looks like I'm approaching, if I kind of took the limit aspect of it, I'm approaching 0, but I never get it. So there is no absolute min. Okay. Just want to have a quick discussion really quick about this over here again. Let's kind of talk about f prime of x does not exist before we move on. Let's say I have a graph, and we have seen these a lot, these absolute value graphs. Maybe f of x equals the absolute value of x minus 30. Okay? So I know that right there, f prime of x is not differentiable. So if I'm going to talk about where f prime of x equals 0, do I have any critical numbers here? I can never find a tangent line that gives me 0. But I do have where f prime of x does not exist, and that is at x equals 3. And then this one doesn't have any endpoints because it keeps going. So my only critical number is x equals 3. And lo and behold, that is my absolute min at 3, 0. So the absolute minimum value is at 0. So I have to look for all three of those things, again, where f prime of x equals 0, f prime of x does not exist, and my endpoints. Alright, let's go back. Let's look at number 2. So here it wants me to find the critical numbers for this function. So I don't have a graph, and I know I need to check three things. Endpoints, f prime of x equals 0, and f prime of x does not exist. No endpoints going on here. This is not a closed interval. If I talk about my critical numbers, there's no endpoints. Okay, so I need to find where f prime of x equals 0. Before I do that, I have to find, right, f prime of x. Go ahead and do that, and pause me, and then check that you get the right answer. Pause me, I'm serious. Okay, now that you've unpaused me, because you've done your work, let's see how you did. Low, C high, minus high, C low, all over, low, low. Simplify. 4x squared plus 4 minus 8x squared, which equals 4 minus 4x squared, x squared plus 1. I'm going to go ahead and just factor because I feel like it. Alright, so 4, 1 minus x squared should be 4, 1 minus x, 1 plus x. Yeah, that's a 1. Okay. So let's see, where does f prime of x equal 0? Well, it's going to just equal 0 where my numerator equals 0, as long as my denominator doesn't equal 0 too. So I'm going to take my numerator and set it equal to 0. So this is where my f prime of x equals 0. And I get out plus or minus 1. And then where f prime of x does not exist would be where my denominator is 0, as long as my numerator is 0. Okay, so it doesn't exist, and here I can see that that guy, I don't have to worry about the square, because the inside 0, it's all 0. Well, that's going to be imaginary numbers. Imaginary, I can spell, numbers. So there are none there. So my critical numbers overall would be where x equals plus or minus 1. There were no endpoints. There were no does not exist. So those would be my critical numbers. Okay, we're going to pause, and I'm going to, well, gosh, we don't have too much. Maybe I won't pause. No, we're going to just keep rolling here. Okay, so let's locate the absolute extrema. So now it wants me to find the absolute extrema. Okay, so let's go find where f prime of x does not exist and equals 0, and all the endpoints. Ah, yay! Look at this. I got some endpoints from a critical number. Okay, so let's go find f prime of x. So, take the chain rule, derivative of the outside. Leave the inside alone, times the derivative of the inside. Okay, so let's see. Where does this guy equal 0? Well, I don't have to worry about this pi over 6. So I just need to know where cosine is going to equal to 0. So let's see. Cosine is going to equal 0 when this guy here, if you remember in our unit circle, cosine, sine. So when it equals, oops, I was drawing you a fun little picture. So when it equals pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, etc. in both directions. So then here I'm going to multiply by 6 over pi. So I'm going to take it times that. So the pi's are all going to cancel, which is nice. And then I'm going to make it into divide by 2. So I'm going to have 3, let's see, 2 goes into 6, that's 3 times 3 is 9. Oh golly. Okay. So I can see that it is going to only be 3 because of my interval for the f prime of x equals 0. So what about f prime of x does not exist? Nothing there. It's fine. It's cosine. It's everywhere. And then my endpoints are at 0 and 6. So here I can see that my critical numbers are at x equals 0, 3, and 6. So now I have to find the absolute extrema on this interval. So to find the absolute extrema, I am going to go and plug it in and see what I get out. That'd be sine of 0, 0. That would be sine of pi over 2. I'm plugging those into the original, by the way. Okay, so pi over 2, sine is 1. Awesome. I'm recording notes. Yeah. You want to come say hi? You can come here really quick. Okay, we got a little visitor who wants to say hi. Okay, and then we have to find what it would be at f of 6. That would be sine of pi. Sine of pi, again, is at 0. Okay. Crazy kids. So my absolute max and my absolute min are going to be, so my max is going to be at 3, 1, and I have 2 mins. I have one at 0, 0, and one at 6, 0. Okay? We do it on time. Second, I gotta look at time. Okay, I'm going to pause and we'll pick up because I'm running out of time. So we will continue. We have 4 and 5 left, and we will continue that in just a little bit.